Welcome to Sister Friends. I'm Angie Gray here with my amazing friend,
ReShonda Young.
And together we're diving into what's at the heart of it all, relationships.
From finances and family to the ups and downs of life partnerships, and even those relationships we have with ourselves. We're here to talk about the real stuff.
We're not shying away from the hard conversations, we're leaning into them because we believe that when we start talking, we start understanding.
And when we understand, we grow in empathy, compassion, and connection.
So grab a seat,
grab a friend, and let's
get into it.
Okay, we're ready.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, everyone. I'm Angie Gray.
And I'm ReShonda Young.
And we are Sister Friends. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate you taking out time in your day to hang out with us and hear our stories. And
yeah, you could be doing a number of other things, and you chose to be here with us, and so we really appreciate it.
Yeah, we do. Thank you so much. Today, we are going to reflect and share our thoughts and things that came up for us as we listened to the Oprah podcast, which I love. You know, I got away from listening to Oprah when she went off her show. I used to watch her show like every single day. I would work out during her show.
Yeah.
And then when the show went off, I do the Super Soul Sunday.
Okay.
Is that what was Super Soul Sunday? Yeah. And lots of time spent there. But I love her podcast. And just recently started listening to it pretty frequently. And she had Maria Shriver on.
Mm-hmm.
And so ReShonda and I shared that podcast. And what was the title of it? Do you remember?
Oh gosh, it's like healing and finding your way home.
Yeah.
It was more than that, though.
Mm-hmm. It was
relationships, healing. I can't remember.
Well, she wrote a book. Maria Shriver wrote a book of poems, and we will link this.
It's called Heartbreak, Healing,
Okay.
and Self-Discovery.
Okay.
Yeah,
it's a good one. Anyway, I learned a ton, and we will link her podcast in the notes or in the description of the podcast too. But we're going to talk about it a little bit and see what you thought of. This is the first time we're chatting about it, but we loved it. So you go. Tell me what, like, first thing that comes up for you.
Yeah. So when I read the title, I was like, I don't know, but when I got into the podcast, it was phenomenal.
Yeah.
The first thing was that I really loved the friendship that she and Maria shared.
Yeah.
And it really also brought home to me how they are such elitists, yet they're so normal.
Yeah.
And they were so transparent. And Maria in particular was so vulnerable in that whole episode. And she was so relatable.
Mm-hmm.
I saw so many aspects of my life and things that I've gone through that I was able to relate to. And just to see how she was able to carry through was amazing.
Yeah.
But then also looking at the family dynamics of how she grew up, I couldn't relate to that. It was super eye-opening for me.
Yeah.
So how about you? What was
I
your big
was
takeaway?
just really surprised. First of all, I think I was sharing this earlier with a client and she didn't know who Maria Shriver was. So we have a younger audience also, which I love that we have a younger audience as well. So Maria Shriver, in case you don't know who she is from, so her name is Shriver. Her mom was a Kennedy. So President John F. Kennedy was her uncle. The Bobby Kennedy, was he the other one that, no, what was the other one that was assassinated? Oops. Her other, no, that's bad. It's going to make us look bad. But anyway, her other uncle, the other Kennedy that was assassinated, those were her uncles. So she grew up in a Kennedy family. Her dad started the Peace Corps. What?
I know, right?
Her dad started the Peace Corps. Her mom started the Special Olympics which is my little sister is involved with every year.
Yeah.
Such an amazing organization. So these are big names and big money.
They're world changers.
I mean, real world changers.
Yeah.
And so her and Oprah have been best friends through journalism, I think. In their 20s, they started to be friends, right?
Yeah.
And Maria and they just get so Maria's been through all this stuff, and then they get together on Oprah's podcast, and I think also to promote her book of poems that goes into her life. Um, what stood out for me, yeah, was it was cool to hear about their friendship. I think we've talked about this before that I just think you don't have to have a ton of friends.
Just need some good ones.
Yeah, but if you have some good ones,
Yeah.
one or two, honestly,
Yeah.
is just such a blessing. And I do think it's pretty cool to see folks like her and Oprah that have had a friendship for so long, and they have both gone through so much. But yeah, her story was amazing. In particular for me, I don't know where you want to start. I took notes too.
Yeah. And I think also I definitely want to just tie it into like the importance of these friendships.
Yeah.
These woman girlfriend.
Yeah.
These girlfriendships.
Yep. These
that we
girlfriendships.
have.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
That's probably where this will all, we're doing this because of our girlfriendship. And I always say that we dated for a while before we knew that we knew. But yeah, and I think for me, I have had friendships. Yes, my friend Julie, who I've had for a very long time since we were sophomores in high school, and then you came along later in life.
Yeah.
And a lot of other friendships. I just don't think it's been until recently for me.
Mhm.
I see other women, like even Julie's really good at having friendships. I
Yeah.
feel like I had so many children and
Mm.
I created that life
Yeah.
that I did not understand the value. Like I just didn't, I didn't understand it. And
Yeah.
now I'm like, holy moly. From the very first podcast, quite honestly, that we did together,
Yeah.
that's when it was like, oh my gosh, like we all need each other. Like
We
we
do,
are in this
right?
together.
We
And
are.
yeah, so it's really, really been life changing. So
I
thanks for saying that, because that's what this will be all about.
I
Sharing these experiences woman to
absolutely.
woman.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what ReShonda said too. P.S. is when I was like, okay, how about this podcast? What do you think? I sent her a couple to think about and like send me something if you think. And she got back and said this was the one. And she goes, I think I can relate to it. She could. And there's going to be so many women that can relate to this stuff. So
For sure.
mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things, there's so many things we can
Yeah.
hit on.
Yep.
But one of the things that really brought focus from what they were talking about to our friendship
Mhm.
was when they talked about how Maria showed up. So the day that it was going to come out publicly, even though Maria knew for quite a while beforehand that Arnold had been
her divorce.
unfaithful and details and all of that was going to come out publicly.
Yeah.
It was on the exact same day, which was the last day of Oprah's final episode.
Yeah.
And Maria still flew out and showed up for her.
Yeah.
In spite of this big public humiliation
Yeah.
that she was just about to be going through or had just been announced.
Yeah.
But she still showed up.
Yep. That was so cool.
It was so cool and it was impactful. And I won't say it was like any kind of a public humiliation or anything that you were going through, but when I think about Will's passing and how uncomfortable something so tragic can be for the people around, yet like you showed up to walk with me. Like people kind of can shy away, like, I don't know what to say. I'm not going to call or I'm going to wait or, it can be so uncomfortable. Yet like you didn't just call or text, like you physically showed up. And I was like, yeah, that's what girlfriends do.
You made me cry. We're just starting.
I know, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And you let me.
Right.
I have to say that too, because
we're going to need to pause this.
I know, wait a minute.
I know. Oh my gosh.
Because that's the thing too, is to be vulnerable enough to let someone, like you are an independent woman.
Very independent.
Very independent. And to because to be honest, in the first part of our relationship, it was, I think I felt like I'm just invasive, like I am with my kids, and then we've shared, and we will share more about why that is. But I think I knew that you, in the beginning, you were very private. I can do it. Thank you anyway. Very gracious always.
Yeah,
But,
yeah,
so that you allowed me to be there for you was
yeah.
really, I mean, it's a gift for me, you
Because
know?
the other thing was like, yeah, I only wanted like the closest of closest of closest people around at that time.
Hmm.
And I know it probably seemed very standoffish, but everybody handles grief in their
Yeah.
own way,
Yeah.
grief and loss, and so generally you will have a bunch of people that are in your house and they're bringing food and they're
Yeah.
and they're doing
Yeah.
all the wonderful
Yeah.
things that people do, um, and that for me would have been incredibly overwhelming.
Hmm.
Um, it would be way too overwhelming. And so that was not part of the journey for
Yeah. I
me
remember
to
you telling
allow
me that.
to have
Yes.
the house open for people to just keep coming
Hmm.
through.
Hmm.
Because what would have happened probably is I probably would have been upstairs and my
Hmm.
mom or somebody else would have been entertaining everybody because it would have been
Hmm.
overwhelming. Um, so yeah, it took a lot, I think, for you to do that and for me to allow it. But it was exactly what I needed. It
That's
was
so
so what I
good.
needed at that time.
That's
It
so
was
good.
just those close friends that can just come and sit or walk or whatever.
Yeah.
And
Thank you
I
for,
think you were probably, you or Beth were, one of you would have been the first ones to actually like be there to like just kind of go and walk with me.
hmm. Yeah.
Yep.
Thanks for sharing that. I
Yeah.
love Beth, by the way. And just to give context in case, so, Will, so, Rashana's boyfriend partner for a long time, and he died a year and a half ago now.
It'll be 2 years in June.
2 years in June. Yep.
Yeah.
And what you're talking about, I think just worth saying is, like you said, people handle grief differently. And I think it's so important that we say that, because I remember you talking to me about it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there's so much family and friends and people that loved him and love you and all the things. And people are just doing the best that they can to love.
Yeah.
And to be able to take care of yourself enough to be able to say, okay, here's what I have to do for me so that I can grieve. This
Right.
is how I have to do it in my own way.
Yeah.
And you even said Will would want you to do that. Like, and I do know that
Yeah.
I felt good about, like, yeah, you got to do it that way.
Yeah. And the
That's the way.
boundaries that
The
had to be
boundaries
set
had
and
to
just
be
the
set.
support for
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's good to say out loud so that
Yeah.
people know that you don't have to do it. Like, I've thought about that too so many times. Like, if I had a terrible, tragic death or something that, in my immediate family, how I wouldn't want to do it the way that traditionally you see people doing things. And so
Right.
it was really good for me to see that too. So thank you.
Yeah. So I just thank you for being there,
Mhm.
just needing some girlfriends that I just, could trust and feel really vulnerable and close with. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that Maria Shriver shares that with Oprah, that was really meaningful to her and her friendship. What else? I wrote down a couple of things that I think she shared, and you just said that. So she was divorced from Arnold Schwarzenegger. So she grows up and she's got this family. Oh, I know where we can go with this. So she had a lot of family expectations. I'm wondering
Oh,
about you with family expectations. I wonder what that looks like for you, because when I'm thinking about me, there wasn't, I don't think there was a lot of expectation that was verbalized. But what I just mentioned earlier is that my mom was a doer. My mom was always, always, always doing for other people, and she still is. And it's
yeah.
wonderful. And how did that play out in my life? What about
Yeah.
you?
Yeah. There were no pressures or expectations that were put on me by other people. It was
Mhm.
all self imposed.
Mm.
I was super hard on myself.
Mhm.
But my family didn't do that.
Mhm.
That was just me.
Okay. And just to touch on that, because we've mentioned it before, because you were the only brown colored girl that was at your school that wasn't getting into the things at school, was one determination thing that you shared with us before. You were like, I'm going to be in that paper. I'm determined to, it wasn't the paper. Yeah, it was the paper,
That
right?
was one of the many things.
One of the things. I mean, you listed so many that have given us such a great overlook of your determination as a young woman early on, and into
Mhm.
now the things that you've accomplished.
Mm.
Um, and for me, I don't know why I have no answers except for my mom did all this stuff. So I did find myself, I've always been determined to. I guess my dad was an athlete. So
Okay.
that's where that kind of stuff
Yeah.
came in, that, physically, the things I could do physically.
Yeah.
And then my mom was more of service, like the things that were implied, I guess. And so I did find myself later finding my worth and value
Mhm.
in the yes saying. And that's what she shares. Maria shares her worth and value was all around the expectations of what she needed to do, the things
Yes.
she accomplished.
Well, and they even talked about how, I mean, around the dinner table, it was all about like, how are you changing the world?
Yes.
And even when Oprah came for
Mm.
their first dinner, and Oprah was like, it was so intense, she had to go to the bathroom. She just
Yeah.
had to get away from it.
Yes.
And Maria's like, the family's like, who is she? Like, basically, how smart is she? And what is she doing to change the world? And
Yeah.
like, your friendships, your everything. Like, for her everything was
Yeah.
around how are you changing the world? And how are the people you're associating with changing the
Mm-hmm.
world?
Mm-hmm.
And there was no room for emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Now that
There
I
you go.
was able
Yeah. Yeah.
to
Yes. I thought about you
resonate with.
actually with that. Okay.
Yeah,
Good.
yeah. 'Cause I can't remember the phrase that her mom would
Oh, I
use.
can. I can. She said,
Yip, yip it, or
oh, shoot. Because this is funny, because I was just sharing this with my client before, and her mom had a saying, put up and shut up, or something like that. Um, nope, that wasn't it. That's not the right one. We better take that out of there. She said something like, I didn't raise no punks. That was what her mom would say to her, because we were talking about this. And she said, what was it? Basically, just put your big girl boots on. I don't want to hear it. There was
yeah,
a phrase, I wish I could remember it too, but her mom had a specific phrase that she would say. So there was no
yeah,
emotion shared. Yeah.
yeah. There was, and that for me was the same. Like, there was no emotion. Um, as a baby, even it was like,
Really?
oh yeah, yeah. Like, in terms of if you're crying or whatever. So um, I still remember. This is so crazy. I remember I used to bite the nipple off of my bottle. And then once it was bitten off, um, I would get scared of the bottle.
Okay.
Okay, so you're growing teeth by a
Yeah,
year.
right.
So I would bite it off, and then I'd cry or whatever. My mom would be like, "What are you crying for?" And there was no reason
Yeah.
besides the fact that I once again bit the nip off the bottle, which I'm not supposed to do. So
Hmm.
anyway, it was, there's nothing wrong with you,
Yeah.
stop that crying.
Hmm.
And so even with like biting nipple off the bottle, it was just like, okay, it's taken away. You don't know how to properly
Mm.
use the bottle. You no longer have a bottle.
Mhm.
And so I quickly had to, like,
Yeah.
drink out of a cup.
Wow. And so this is your
And
relating to her.
yeah.
So sorry.
Now, where I couldn't relate is that she talks about how now I will say there was never I love yous.
Okay.
That was not a thing for my mom's side of the family. Like,
And Maria says that
yeah,
there was no
there was
talk about love.
no, there wasn't. But where she said she didn't feel love, I felt the love.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we didn't say it, but I felt it. So there was where I was like, oh, I can't really relate to that part.
Mm-hmm.
But I could relate to, like, my mom was not about the crying.
Mm-hmm.
She's not about ever feeling sorry for yourself
Mm-hmm.
or anybody else feeling sorry for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely carry that today. Like,
Yeah.
none of that whatever it is, don't feel sorry for me. And I
Mhm.
don't feel sorry for myself, but
Mhm.
that was my mom. She's just kind of hardcore. Like,
Mhm.
I mean,
I
poof.
think this is interesting that so you didn't there wasn't the I love yous. There wasn't really the allowing.
And there wasn't
F-
like the hugging
right, I was going
and
to say there was no
mm-mm,
hugging
mm-mm,
and there wasn't really allowing for any emotion except for I'm good,
pretty much.
right? So interesting to me because for me, I'm super over analyzing probably everything over here, but I think it's interesting because Todd's family, and there's so many families, but Todd's family was like that too. There wasn't a lot of affection, and we've said this before, the I love yous and all those things, but he says the same thing. He knew he was loved, and I just wonder how. So that's my question because I did have the verbals
Mm-hmm.
from my mom,
Yeah.
mostly my dad too, I'm sure. I did have the hugs. I had all that. So how do you know then?
Mm-hmm. Mine, I believe, was time spent.
Mm,
So even though not like there was not the physical, any verbal, all of that, my family spent time with me.
yeah,
And even now, like that's
interesting.
how I show love
Mm-hmm,
because that's how it resonated for me.
mm-hmm,
Like I could care less about material things. Um, it's fun and I'm always grateful when somebody does give me gifts. Like it's
mm-hmm,
totally fun. But if you never gave me a gift, but you spent quality time with me, that quality time means as much, if not more, than that
mm-hmm.
gift could ever mean.
Yeah.
And so my mom, my uncles, my aunts, my grandparents, we spent so much time together and we laughed and we had fun.
Mm-hmm.
And that was love for me.
That's so beautiful. And super interesting. Okay, so Maria Shriver doesn't get all this. She's not
Mhm,
knowing you're relating to that in many, many ways. Oprah had nothing, like she had zero.
mm-mm,
And she shared that too. Like you guys, after Maria's mom died, and Gail, her other Oprah's other friend's mom died,
mm,
they share how they would talk to their mom still after their passing, and Oprah just never got that. But for
yeah.
me, it's interesting because I had all the I love yous and the hugs and the verbal support.
Hmm.
I, however, did not feel I had the time. And so this is a good segue to Maria talks about it right after that. She says, so she knew it was her responsibility to break that chain of behavior,
Yes.
to talk about all the feelings, to talk about and be interested in the thoughts and ideas that her children had, to be
Right.
involved in their life.
Yeah.
So that's me is so in different psychology and coaching and stuff, there's some work that you do to go back to your childhood and you identify whether your parents were invasive or no, I'm sorry, intrusive or neglective. And Todd and I did this exercise one time, and it was really hard at first because I didn't know. Like, my mom and dad were there. So, what were they intrusive? Were they neglective? And it came, and you can only pick one parent when you're doing this work. And so I picked on my mom. And I said, my mom, even though this was probably shocking to people, my mom would have been neglective.
Mm,
And that sounds like this harsh word. It's not meant to be harsh. It is meant to go, it's basically what the child feels the child did not get. And so my mom was busy. I was the oldest of the five. She
mm,
had a full-time job always when I was growing up.
yeah.
Now I can look back, hindsight being 2020, but so she in this interview, Oprah says, well, no, I'm sorry. Maria reflects on as she saw her mom, this relationship with her mom. She reflects on, I wondered what my mom's relationship with my mom was. Okay, so
Mm,
that's going to be our next thing because this segue into intrusive and neglective was where the time thing was for me. Like, my where I related was that I got all the words, but I didn't have the time. And so then as I look back at my mom, how that has affected my parenting, I would say that and my kids would agree that I am intrusive because I
Mm,
wanted the opposite of that. I wanted to
sure.
know the thoughts. I don't remember my mom this doesn't mean memory is right, okay? But I don't have memory of my mom asking me about how I felt about things.
Mm,
What do I
sure.
think about things? How do you, any of that. And I am all that to my kids and likely to a fault. But I always say, I would rather have you say, no, mom, I don't want to spend time with you than ever feeling like I didn't try. Like I want
Sure.
that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. What about so I will share some more things about my mom and my talk that we had on my birthday, but I wanted to ask you, so your mom didn't give you all the things, the physical things and the verbal things. She
Right.
spent time with you. Do you
Yes.
know what your relationship or what her relationship was with her mom?
Pretty similar,
Okay.
where they spent a lot of time together, and how, I mean, my mom and I talk. If we don't talk 5 times a day, I would be surprised.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
we
so
talk all
crazy.
the time,
Yeah.
and there's always something to talk about. And
Yeah.
it's so fun, and we laugh. And she and her mom did the same thing.
Okay.
So I remember I'd wake up, early, I don't know, 6 o'clock or so as a kid, and it would be like the party line with my
Oh, the
mom.
party
It was
line.
like
I
the party
remember
line. So
that.
yeah, it'd be
Yeah.
like my grandmother, my mom, my aunt, uh, couple of my uncles, like they're all on the phone
So
every
funny.
single morning.
Oh my
Every
gosh.
morning.
So, y'all, the party line is for those of you that aren't 50 or older. We did not have one, but my friend Carol did. She was my
Yeah.
best friend when I was little. So you'd pick up the phone at Carol's house, and I need to call my mom, but her neighbor would be on the phone talking to whoever. So you'd have to hang up and wait for the neighbor to be done. But how cool that you all could share. How many people? I don't even know
I
how
don't
that worked, but that's
they
so funny.
it would be, I mean, they were on the phone like
Too bad for the
every
people
morning.
that wanted to not be part of your family and make
I
another
know.
phone call.
I
That's
know,
awesome,
right?
though.
Right. Yeah, it was. And my mom and um her oldest living brother and her sister
Yeah.
every single morning on the phone
Wow.
together still.
Wow,
Oh,
still.
still.
Oh my gosh, that's
And
so
the funniest,
amazing.
most fun conversations. And although I bet, I mean, my mom will turn 80 next month. My uncle is 83,
Yeah.
maybe. And my aunt will be 76 in a couple or next week. And I bet they've never, ever told one another they love them.
Wow.
However, there is nothing
Ugh,
that would tell you that they don't love each other.
I
Like
love
they
that.
know,
Yes.
and my uncle, even like now, he's with diabetes, has lost one of his legs,
Mm.
and his sight is pretty much gone now. And dialysis 3 days a week. And so, and then his wife had a stroke 2018 or 19, I can't remember. And so she's paralyzed on one side.
Oh my gosh.
So, and he's been the primary caregiver in spite of all of his ailments.
Wow.
And so they get up and go on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday when he has dialysis, and some Saturdays, depending on what's going on. And they're at his house at like 5:30 in the morning. My mom and her sister.
What?
It doesn't matter, rain, shine, winter, summer, and they are helping him to get ready.
Oh my
And they are
gosh.
giving each other so much crap, you wouldn't believe it. It is the most
Mm-hmm.
hilarious thing ever.
Mm-hmm.
And they're making breakfast and they're doing all the things. And by 7 in the morning, they're back home, you
Like
know,
a whole day's
a whole
things
day's worth of things that
by
they've
7
done.
a.m.
Yeah, like help with laundry, all the
Wow.
things. But they've never, I mean, I can pretty much like 99.99% guarantee you they've never said I love you to one another.
Wow.
But you don't have to
Right.
when you do things
Right.
like that.
Right.
Yeah.
I love that. Oh my gosh, how beautiful. And it's so crazy because Todd, same. Like his dad and he talk every single day, at least twice a day, at
I
least
love
twice a
that.
day. And
Yes.
I mean, they don't sound like they're talking about anything. And
Yeah, I
that will
love
be
it.
very missed someday. But I love that. I love that so much. And it's so
Yeah.
true. Words are awesome. I love words also, but
Yeah.
my love language is time spent with me.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So very cool. So you have never felt a need for the other stuff because the verbal.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Um, I asked my mom. For my birthday on my we went out for breakfast and I had just listened to this podcast at that time, and I asked my mom how her relationship was with her mom because my mom is, I think your mom has a lot of kids too, didn't she, and her family?
There were, 13, but 8 that actually lived past like 7.
Oh, wow.
I know.
Gosh. Yeah, so she's the second oldest of 9 and she's 78. And so, in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, well, it would make sense for then my grandma probably didn't have time either. Like
Mm.
she's taking care of babies and she also worked later on. And, you know, I don't know, just things were different also, I think, in the 50s,
Oh my gosh, they're so different.
Yeah. And so I did ask her, and it was funny that I'd never, first of all, I thought it was shocking me being misintrusive or invasive, whatever, question asker all the time that I don't think I've really had not asked her that before. And, yeah, so it was interesting. She didn't really know how to answer. She had some memories of sitting on the side of the bathtub when my grandma was going potty and
Mhm.
chatting with her when she was little. But when I asked her, "Did you guys have a close relationship? Did you
Yeah.
guys talk a lot?" And she said, I don't remember like having close, like deep talks or anything, but she said, I knew I was loved. But my grandma was also very much like, you got to keep it moving, which was
Yeah.
like Maria's mom. You
Yes.
got to get up. They went through the depression when my grandma was little, like all the
Yeah.
things that they went through.
Right.
And plus having a million kids. So it's like, so it makes sense to me that my mom, I don't know, maybe just never thought about it. So I'm going to share a story with you
Okay.
because this goes also on into, for me, one of the best parts of the podcast was when she talks about breaking that chain of not being able to feel feelings, not or tying your worth to things that you do.
Right.
And I see that. I see that in both of us,
Mhm.
for both of us. So the things that I did were saying yes to being in service at church, saying yes to anything that anybody ever needed. I grew out of that, and that's all good. The other thing was recognizing kind of how I got there. And so this conversation with my mom, I brought up some trauma. So
Mm.
I said, Mom, do you remember? And gosh, I didn't want this to be a bad thing, and it wasn't. She was a champ. She was a champ
Oh, that's
too.
great.
Yeah, because like I know too, being a mom, it's so interesting how kids see things and remember things differently
Mhm.
than you did.
Yeah.
Not to say that they didn't happen that way, but so I was careful and I said, Mom, remember when I was little, starting, I want to say like when I was like 6 or 7 years old, and my neighbors across the street were Kelly, her name was Kelly, and she was
Mhm.
a bully and she invited me over. I
Mm.
think maybe I told you this story.
Yeah.
She invited me over when her cousin was over and I had this long blonde hair, divided my hair up, and each of them took half and they swung me around in circles. And it was very traumatic, obviously. It's
Yeah.
hurt, and I was scared and came home and cried. Another time, her cousin ratted my hair terribly, and it was bad. And anyway, more times than that. But I remember going home then and crying to my mom, and my mom holding me. I remember like being right where I was in front of the door, just she getting on her knees and holding me and saying, let's pray for Kelly. And now I look back at that. And at the time I thought, okay, that's what you do. And looking back at that, I do think that's a good thing to do. I think it's a great thing to do. Hurt people. So we can pray for Kelly. As a coach and a mom now, it explains mom wise why I am a fierce mama bear when don't F with my kids. I will kill you inside, those feelings. And there are many stories where Todd was like holding me back, thankfully nothing ever happened, but those feelings are very raw and very visceral. But what I said to my mom is, but what you didn't do, because I thanked her for that. And I said, but what didn't happen, and she knew exactly what I was going to say. She said, I never went over and said anything. She knew exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah. I said, I never saw you defend me. I never saw you show me what it's like to defend myself, stand up for myself.
Yeah.
Boundaries, that's definitely a boundary, right? I never felt that. And so what was interesting then, as I thought about this for like the first time ever, I've shared that story, but in terms of what didn't happen, like, so like in coaching, you teach, which you I'm sure taught, for meaningful lasting change, there has to be an inner work and outer work. So the inner work was praying for someone. The outer work just never happened. So in my life, I proceeded to go on and be bullied more. Like in high school, I was shoved up against lockers. I had people stop in their cars and getting out of their car. Like, I don't even know like who these people were, most of them. And then to go and have relationships that were not respectful of me, and where people didn't treat me with kindness. Hard lesson to learn, but anyway, which is why then that explains then why I am the mom that I am, and the question asker, and the I'm not gonna ask you how you're doing after Will's
Right.
death, because that's a way of me showing you that this is hard. I know you can do hard things, but I want you to know that I'm here. I will do whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
It makes me emotional.
And
Anyway,
even with the cancer diagnosis and going to driving me to the appointments, like all the things. Yeah, it's been amazing. So now that we're both about in tears, I'm going to tell you a funny story.
Okay, funny.
So, and my mom would kill me if she finds out. So if
Don't
any of you
share
are
this with
listening,
Bro.
if you're listening, don't share this with her, and I hope that she doesn't listen to this episode. So, talking about Mama Bear, right?
Yes.
There weren't the I love yous or any of that stuff, but do not.
I feel like I know this story. Did you
Do you
share
know
this
this?
with
I
me?
don't know. I
At
might
the funeral?
have. Oh no,
Different one.
So, there was a really not so great situation at all, and my mom went to jail.
Well, this is the same one. Remember, like she went across the street. Maybe it wasn't a funeral, but she went across the street
from the
and
church.
she threw down.
Oh
is
my
what
gosh!
I'm saying.
And I will disclaimer: she did get off.
Yeah.
Like there was an arrest, but and a trial, but she got off.
She's my kind of
She got
mama.
off, but it was like, do not. You can
not.
mess with me, but don't mess with my
That's right.
with my daughter.
That's right.
Like
I can see her right now.
oh my gosh,
She should be proud of that story.
I mean, because
It was a long
always,
time ago. P.S. And
it was a long time ago. However, I mean, it really was such.
80-year-old Ro doing the same thing now.
Oh my gosh, right? Like we are such protectors of one another. We really are. But it was
That's so
like
awesome.
enough is enough.
Yeah.
And she had dealt with the same like people in the past, and then like when the younger generation came after me, it was like, oh yeah, you can mess with me, but not my baby girl. And
this explains too. Then remember last week when we were talking about confrontation, and there was so much things come up, and you were saying, what did you say? You go, eluded. I don't want to misquote, but you were like, you're a relationship preserver. You're like, I can take a lot of things basically, and I will be very patient until I'm not.
Yeah.
And then now I've done my best, and now you're gonna, and I, I mean, no, I think I don't think that's a bad thing. I'm not saying that as a bad thing. I see that is likely where that came from. Like I'm patient, but don't mess with my people. And at some point also don't mess with me.
Right. Yeah.
And that's a great example that she shared with you too, I think,
Yeah. The importance of sticking up for the people we love.
Yeah.
I mean, and you do what you can to not have confrontations or anything, but at a point it's like you've got to defend yourself.
Yeah. And I didn't see that either way, actually. That's interesting. So Maria Shriver talks about how so her marriage to Arnold Schwarzenegger, so she was in this political family and all this stuff, and she wanted to steer absolutely clear of that to prove herself and her worth
Yeah.
and have nothing to do with that. Ends up marrying Arnold Schwarzenegger, who was an actor at the time, thinks that that's the furthest thing away from everything. He ends up running for governor and winning. She shares that as a really good experience, though, that she
Yeah.
got to find different things where she could serve.
It gave her a platform.
Yeah, it gave her a
Mm-hmm.
platform. Her divorce, she shares, was really, really hard. Let's talk about that. You and I, that's what we do. We've both
Yeah.
been divorced.
Yeah.
I married Todd again. And there was a lot of, okay, so that would be one of the questions was, what did you learn about yourself during that experience?
Yeah. I say during the
Or
experience,
after, whatever, like what's something that you could, like
I,
a lesson learned?
so for me, like I say, I'm a relationship preserver as much as
Mhm.
possible.
Mhm.
And I don't see where, generally speaking, you need to just like, I don't see where you need to hate each other or anything
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
Even when bad things happen, I'm not one who hates people.
Mhm.
But what it did show me is that I could forgive.
Mm.
I don't have to hate the person, but if that person is not willing to enter into a healthy adult like relationship, that it is okay for me to sever that relationship.
Mhm.
Like there's no need to try and preserve a relationship with someone who just like is not ready or able to be a good human being to you.
Mhm. Yeah, well, boundaries,
And
an extension of boundary learning what
yes.
boundaries
And it
are.
was very helpful for me that, like with Cameron, that he was grown.
Mhm.
And being that that's the case, I don't have to continue to have this
So
relationship.
yeah, so sorry,
Yeah.
more smash my face into the microphone. So more boundaries. So Cameron, for clarity, because I think we do this, Shonda, we do this.
We just act
Talk
like people
we y'all know
know who
exactly
these people are.
Cameron is your stepson from your marriage to Neil,
Yes.
and Cameron is 33, right?
Cameron is 33.
33. And he's had some challenges, and you've been really good to him, and it's been challenging.
Yeah, Cam's my son.
Mm-hmm.
That's my boy.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, so it was really helpful that he was an adult. And actually, even in that relationship,
With
'cause
Cameron, Neil, which one?
with Neil,
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that I had always said, and I'm like, gosh, never say never.
Mm.
Because I'd always said I would never stay in a relationship just because we've got kids. Like I
Yeah.
would never
Yeah.
and I stayed in that relationship until Cameron was an adult because I couldn't take him with me
Mm.
and I couldn't leave him.
Mm-hmm.
And so that taught me something about myself too. Like
Yeah.
never say never. Because I stuck around for years because
Yeah.
I couldn't leave him.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
he still thanks me so much. Like he's like, I don't know where I'd be or what I'd do.
Cameron.
Yeah, Cameron thanks me. I mean, on a regular for sticking there and not leaving him.
Yeah.
So
It's amazing what you do as a parent to protect your children, and as women. I mean, mamas are fierce. That's interesting. You know, that you had that
it's
experience.
like I didn't even birth this child, but he was mine.
Yeah.
Still, like
yes, absolutely.
yeah,
Maria Shriver shares that although that was a very public and horrible experience, so she shares that same sort of feelings and ideals that she knew that for the children it was really important for them to get along, and they did, and they always have. So that was really good. So for you, divorce, learning about yourself, and would be this continued understanding of boundaries and yes, preserver of relationships, and yes, for children, and boundaries within that also.
And boundaries within that, because like if I were to open myself up to communication, like it's just abusive type of manipulative that
Mm-hmm.
things that I'm just
Yeah.
uh, not going to
Yeah.
allow myself to walk through. So what did you learn about yourself?
Also, before I do that, I love that you said you can choose to not hate someone and just not be in relationship with them.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah.
That's really good
I would
because
never
that's a
wish
like,
anything bad or do
no,
anything
yeah,
bad or
yeah,
nothing like that.
yeah.
You just have to have boundaries
Because it's
sometimes.
like, yeah, well, you do all the time, and it's also just taking you're giving your power away. You're allowing someone to take your joy from you, and that's that whole thing of detaching without devaluing, which has been my lifelong lesson. That, thank you, Jesus, I finally was able to get it. Not been a
Sure.
head thing, but like a whole thing. And it's been life changing. I'm so grateful
Yeah.
I have arrived.
I
Not
love
that
it.
it's not still work, but that whole detaching without devaluing thing is such a gift.
Yeah.
So awesome. And that's the whole Mel Robbins let them thing.
Yes.
Um, what did I learn? Oh, jeepers, that's a whole podcast. Hmm. I learned that God is good.
Right.
I mean, so many miracles.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is where I have to not cry the whole time, but so many miracles, so much forgiveness and grace. And um, I learned, I'll never forget where I was at during our divorce. I learned that love is not a feeling, it is a choice. And I hated that so badly. My mom taught me so many amazing things. That was one of the things she taught me. And I hated it because
Mm.
I was like, no, I want to feel this love. Why am I not feeling this love from Todd? Why is he not being nice to me? Why am I trying so hard? Blah, 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 blah. All legitimate things, okay, that folks go through when
Yeah.
you're growing up with someone. And we both had so much growing up to do. But that became very true to me. Like the Lord, if I've said this to you before and you all, that for me, like probably I could name 4 or 5 times where if y'all would have been sitting next to me, I feel like maybe you would have heard the words too. But it was this one was, I was on a walk. The kids and I, the 4 youngest, were living in Cedar Falls, and Todd and I were divorced. And I was on a walk, and it was out of the blue, kind of, that God was like, hey, I never told you that it was, nowhere did I ever say anywhere that love is a feeling. I choose
Mm.
to love you. And so it wasn't in a way that, oh, now I
Mm.
was guilted to say, oh, and you go choose Todd now. It was never, never, never that. I asked for the divorce. I went through with the divorce. Um, and it was my growing. Like it was, yes, Todd grew a lot also, but it was my journey.
Yeah.
And it was, okay, you're right. You're right. It is a choice. And it was the biggest lesson ever.
Yeah.
Um, so that's the one thing that does come to mind out of many, but that
Yeah.
would be, and then also boundaries first. So that was this more soft, loving, oh, that's so lovely thing. Then the other harder thing was, I can't blame him for how I have taught him to treat me. I do not
Oh,
get to also be a
that's
victim.
big.
Yeah, I don't get to allow it. I mean, it's nuanced. Yes. I mean, there's nuance in there, right? But
Yeah.
also, I taught him it was okay to
Mm.
treat me a certain way.
Yeah.
And I remember one time, and Todd's okay with me sharing this with y'all because we're very in love and everything is very lovely, and
Yes.
certainly not been always that way. It's been an absolute journey, but one well worth it. And I love him so much. After we got back together, it was a year. We were divorced for a year.
Hmm.
And I remember, though, and not, you don't, everything's not hunky dory just because you had this second wedding and all the kids were there and it was lovely and sweet and amazing and sang really cool songs. But I remember, those patterns of behavior, they take a lot of practice and a lot of commitment and a lot of intention to change those things.
Yeah.
But we hadn't arrived yet. And I remember him getting kind of big, and he, he never ever hurt me physically. Words hurt me.
Yeah.
And so it was like, felt very big, and I felt very small, and like, like what's happening? That's kind of how I would share with him a lot. when he would talk to me, it felt like a deer. I felt like a deer in headlights. Like, what? Wait, why are you mad? Wait, what just happened? Right.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a thing. But I remember walking into the bathroom upstairs in our bathroom, and he said something to me, and I walked in the bathroom and I stood on top of the toilet, and I said, "Now come here and say that to me again." Which was super powerful for me because I'm
Yeah.
this little thing and he's this big thing. And I thought, now I bet you won't feel the same when you say that to me. So boundaries for me, I'm not saying everybody should go do that. It was just a pivotal moment for me to realize I have to stand up for me.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I remember my counselor saying to me, Todd, in that time in our life, Todd only hears you when you get big. And sometimes that's true, right? So you
Yeah.
have to figure out a way to do it where you need to maybe get big.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be like what you said, it doesn't have to be hatred.
No.
It doesn't even have to be screaming. I didn't scream.
Right.
But to hold your power and know your worth and your value.
Right.
Ask for what you want.
Absolutely.
And
Yes.
don't back down for what you know is important and what is true.
For sure.
And healthy and all the things.
Yes.
Anyway. Those are two things that come to mind for that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really good. Yeah.
Can I say one more thing? My kids and I have talked a lot because, Abby and Adam are married and TJ and Christian are both married now. And I think being divorced and being remarried,
Mm-hmm.
it has sort of set them up. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I should, no matter what, everything should just always work out. And that is not, I don't believe that's true. When I, talk with people, I never, ever, we're a miracle. Like,
Right.
no, I don't think you need to stay with anybody. I think what I do say to my kids is if it's not a physically abusive relationship,
Mm-hmm.
you have children, this is the perspective, is if it's not a physically abusive relationship, just like what you were saying before,
Mm-hmm.
with you and Cam and Neil, and you can look at your child and say, I have done everything in my power to make this work,
Yeah.
then be well.
Right. Yeah.
For me, that never happened. Like, I knew I'd never felt like that. I always felt like there's something here. I'm not done learning my lessons, whatever.
Yeah.
And I think that's the only, if the advice I would always give, it would be that it's not my journey, it's yours. If you got to be okay with looking your kid in the eyes and saying, I did absolutely everything that I could do to be all I could be.
Right.
And I'm done. There's no more lessons to learn here.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway.
So true.
Yeah.
Wow.
So anyway, I related to her with a marriage thing. What else?
Oh, or maybe this was the other podcast. It was the other one. I was just thinking, but I think it was an important point about in relationships, a lot of times we look for our partner to be our best friend and our workout partner.
Oh no, this was the other podcast.
This was the other
I sent
one.
You two of them, and we definitely, because we had a cancellation, we should talk about this one for the next following week. But yes,
but as we're talking about like marriage and relationships, like we look for our partner to be everything nowadays, and that's not really how it needs to be or should be. That's where these girlfriend relationships come in.
Okay, way to bring this back. We can do that with that. Yes, that's so true. And so to wrap things up about that podcast, that would be the women relationships, the support, being there for one another, no matter what, like really for everything. It was so beautiful. And then my other takeaway was the worth and value, figuring out our worth and value doesn't have anything to do with the things that we do, the doing.
That's Maria. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. That's why the title of her book, I Am Maria.
Yeah.
Because people wanted to know, well, aren't you a Kennedy?
Yeah.
What do you do? And everything revolved around, what she did. How do you feel about that with yourself? Like,
I was going to ask you, I just got done talking way too much for a second. So I want to flip it back because
I'm kidding.
Know, but it's such a good question. And we could end on that because that is something I was trying to get to before. So thank you. Yeah. So tying our worth and our value to what you do. I'm excited. I know what I think. Like I can stand out here and look in. And I wonder what you think when you look in here to me.
Okay, so when when I'm in groups and in a meeting and people are like, introduce yourself.
Yeah.
And literally I'm like, I'm ReShonda. I don't tie myself, I literally don't tie
So
myself
good.
to my work.
Mm.
Like who are you? What do you do? I don't know, I do
You
stuff
don't
in the
think you don't
community
think
and
you're boundaries and challenged with boundaries, and maybe not. You're challenged with boundaries and saying yes that the 100 people you're coaching
mhm,
had anything to do with some unconscious thing in there of I I have to, like it's part of what makes me a good person.
absolutely not.
Really?
No.
So
No, no,
good.
no. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
So
stand corrected.
I have a lot of trouble when people ask like, who are you or what do you do?
Yeah.
I mean, there are a bunch of things that I do,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I I can't say like some people are like, I'm a coach, I'm a doctor, I'm a teacher, I'm a this. I'm just ReShonda,
Mhm.
just kind of hanging out here doing
Yeah.
whatever,
Yes.
yeah, I'm doing a bunch of stuff,
Yep.
but none of it none of it is like identifies who I am.
Yep.
Um, so I
So
don't know.
good.
So for you, how do
It's
you
just
feel?
so good. I want to sit in that for a minute because it is the expected thing. It's the knee jerk response, I guess, whatever, socially accepted response. And when people ask you, introduce yourself, then you start talking about the things that you do.
Yeah.
Um, yes, that was really beautiful just to say, hi, I'm Rashonda, and then see what happens.
And it's weird because it's like, I don't even know what to say. And
Yeah.
as much as I'm
Yeah.
asked, you'd think I'd have figured it out.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
I think that's true. I can relate to that. Like in every Zoom meeting, like introducing yourself. You're like, I'm Angie. I usually will start with my family. I am married to my husband Todd. We have 7 children, 3 grandkids. So I think I just remember if this makes sense. I had one part in my life in my career where I was what I didn't want to do was have my worth and my value tied to me being a mom, married with 7 kids, all that stuff. And that was really game changing for me internally and externally with my work because I took a stand. I felt like I was being sort of used in a way by the company that I was with.
Hmm.
I had great opportunity with them, but being asked to speak and do all these things, and it was a big part of my story that they wanted me to share, which I was always honored to share, was that I've been married for 34 years and I have 7 kids and we homeschooled. Oops, we
Yeah.
homeschooled this thing. And we homeschooled and we lived in, all of the things, which I was always very proud of.
Yeah.
However, what happened was then I was like, oh, this is getting gross, man. I don't want people to look at me and think, oh, how awesome. She's all of that. She is a mom with 7 kids, been married 30, and look at her hottie husband. And they have an acreage, and she's also an entrepreneur, and she's on these stages and Dr. Oz. And I'm like,
Hmm.
that is freaking disgusting. I don't want y'all to see that. Cool. Yes, I did those things, do those
Yeah.
things, but you also don't know the hardship. And so if we're not going to talk about this, if we're not going to talk about the real stuff where I'm $30,000 in debt, my husband and I are suffering in our marriage, my kids feel neglected, and it's the furthest thing from I ever wanted,
Mm.
like all the
Yeah.
other things.
Yeah.
So worth and value, no. I also would say I've never consciously thought my worth and my value had anything to do with my work.
Mm-mm.
Um, Definitely, I just am really grateful that I think that was always the journey, and where things got rough is when I would be making decisions that um, involve things that absolutely didn't identify with my true self, like
Yeah.
doing drugs or whatever it
Mm.
might have been,
Yeah.
making poor decisions, whatever that might be. Um, yeah. So no, I think
I think we're
yeah,
I think we're both so purpose driven
yeah,
um, that. I think we live our lives for purpose and on purpose with a purpose. Like that's, and that purpose isn't to impress people about how great we are. It's really just to, live out whatever it is.
I'm
that
just
God,
not that smart. Also, like, I'm just like living life. You know what I mean? I'm just like living life. Yeah. You want to have another? Yeah. Let's have more. Let's have more kids. Yeah. Let's get
You're
married.
hilarious.
Like just not a lot of thought went into
You're
my life.
hilarious,
So
whatever.
you're like backtracking. No, I think definitely made some choices along the way and figuring out still, who I am and my worth and value. And yeah. I'm not going to write a book of poems like Maria Shriver, but you should write a book that's called Just ReShonda. Right? Y'all should let us know.
We'll see about that. Yeah.
Yeah. I am going to write a book today. I mean, not today. I am going to write a book though. And I'm saying that publicly for the first time. I know that I will.
Yeah.
Don't know when, but that's a big deal for me to say that I will.
Oh,
because my life is so full of miracles.
Oh,
it is so full of miracles.
Angie's Book of Miracles.
Ooh,
right?
That could be.
Yeah.
I don't know who will buy it, but
I would.
You would.
I would.
Because you know why? You're my friend. And you'll show up at my book signing when no one's there. And it'll be our Maria Shriver and Oprah story. Remember when remember, Angie, when no one showed up for your book signing?
Oh my gosh.
But I did. I'd be like, yes, ReShonda.
You've got way too many kids for nobody to show up.
Yeah, that's okay. They'd all be there. All right. Well, are we done?
I think we're done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Love you.
Love you too.
Thank you everyone for being here. Subscribe, share with a friend. We love that you take time to listen.
Yeah, like and comment.
Yeah.
We love to read your comments.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah.
And we always have a great time. So we'll see you next time when we talk some more about the next podcast, which I can't remember. Oh, you know who it is? It's Esther Perel. Right?
Yes.
I think her name is Esther Perel, and she's a relationship expert. So we'll talk to you next time all about that. Okay. Thank you so much, you guys. I'm Angie Gray.
And I'm ReShonda Young.
And we are Sister Friends.
Thanks for tuning into Sister Friends. We hope these conversations help you see things from a new angle, feel a little more connected, and maybe even laugh along the way.
Remember, whether it's family, work, or those elephants in the room we all deal with, everything really is about relationships.
If you enjoyed this episode, let us know. Share your thoughts, share this podcast with a friend, and let's keep building those connections.
Until next time, stay connected, stay curious, and let's keep growing together.